You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone. Before we get started today, I wanted to give my guest the proper introduction he deserves. And our guest today is none other than the Jason Ferruggia. Jay Ferruggia has been a part of the fitness industry for over 2 decades now. He's really seen it all. He's been through it. He's experimented with it. Jay's someone that I've known about for many, many years. And then just about, I would say, maybe 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, we did our first interview together. He was gracious enough to have me out on his show out in LA and on Renegade Radio. So check out his show. I'll try to link up our previous podcast we've done before this. And Jay's just really a wealth of information, which is why I wanted to turn the tables on him and have him on my show as well. So we got deep into proper exercise, how his style has changed over the 20 years, what he believes the minimum amount of exercise people should be getting per week, what they should do for kind of fallback workouts. We can explain that, when not to push yourself, what exercises you should be selecting, and really so much more. I always enjoy talking not only with people that are experts in the field, which Jay obviously is, but people that have a real passion for this industry. And there's no doubt about it. And so the work that Jay's doing today is absolutely remarkable. And what we really try to do is distill that over the next hour. I truly hope that you enjoy the show. I'll be doing more interviews in the future. And I wanted to start off our 2019 guests with the Jason Ferruggia. Enjoy the show, everyone. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. We have a really special Training Thursday today, and that is because Jay Ferruggia is on the show. Welcome, Jay. It's so good to have you with us here on the Cabral Concept.
Thanks, buddy. It's great. I mean, you know, you're one of my favorite guests. I've been on multiple times. I'm always excited to have you back, so it's fun to be on your show. Thank you. I
appreciate that. I really do appreciate you having me out, since I hadn't done a lot of interviews before I'd come on your show, maybe just like 5 or 6 before that. And they were great. You know, I love doing other people's shows. I love connecting with other people out there in the space doing amazing things like yourself. But for whatever reason, when I spoke to your audience, there was like so much love and they were really into it. So it was a great response. And actually, I talk about that all the time. I was on another show out in San Jose with Sal and Mind Pump. And I was said, whose show did you enjoy being on? I was like, well, I was on Jay's show. And I was like, I love Jay's attitude. I love Jay's philosophy. And his community is like the same exact way. And they embraced it. So thank you again for having me on.
I forgot to thank you for that, because either Sal or Adam texted me and sent me the link of you saying that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Glad to hear that. So one of the reasons that I wanted to interview you and really kick off our interview series this year is that you're someone that not only has been in the field for a couple decades now, and, one of the reasons why I believe that's important is because when we first get into the industry, we always think that we know it all. And we're like, okay, this is what every client needs to do. This is how they should be training. This is how they should be eating. And we're like 22 years old. And we're not thinking the mindset of someone that's 35, 40 years old. And we just don't have the perspective. It's not that we mean harm. It's just we don't have the perspective. Not only, I would say, do you obviously have the perspective, you've been doing it. You've done it East Coast, you've done it West Coast that we'll talk about, but also you're doing it today. Like, you have a very active lifestyle. So I'd love to really talk about that throughout the show. But before we do, because I always like people to give their own intro, is when someone asks you right now, today, 2019, when they say, what do you do? How do you respond to that?
That's an interesting question that could become a very interesting story for us to discuss. But right now, I would say I am the world's greatest strength coach. That is my one-line answer.
I like that. What's the backstory, though? I'd love to hear the
So I'll tell you why. I did nothing but that, strength and conditioning, for 20 years. That was my one thing. Focus on that. Just how do we get people bigger, stronger, faster? And then as you know, I kind of, the last few years, I veered off into some personal development and some business coaching stuff here and there. And all that was great because I learned a lot. And so it helped my life. And I saw the benefit in me. And then as I shared it with others, and I said, well, I said, start to put this into my business a little bit more, which was great. But as you know, when you start to take on too many things, you start to dilute your focus. It gets to be a little bit hard, a little bit confusing. And there's certainly outliers like The Rock or Arnold who can do a lot of things well at a high level. And sometimes you start to think, oh, well, I could do that. If The Rock could do that, why can't I do that? Why can't I run 4 different businesses and stuff like that? And it was great until it was not great anymore, which happened, I would say, the last 6 months. The second half and especially the end of 2018, I found myself in a lot of cool positions sometimes where I was backstage at a really cool rock concert. I was backstage at WWE events a few times. I was in professional locker rooms and just parties with really cool people. And some of my good friends who are really well known, have huge followings, would introduce me to people and say, here's Jay. He knows a ton of stuff and does a lot of cool stuff and knows a lot of people. And I was like, that's the worst intro ever. And then I would say that to people. Like, yeah, but you do. I'm like, oh, that's just awful. So I, doing my events that I do, I try to get people focused on what's their one thing. And I hadn't done that exercise myself in a while. And it was just a string of events where I reread the one thing, I reread Essentialism, I did the exercise that I give to other people. And then I said, look, if I had a gun in my head, what's the one thing I love doing more than anything else? It's still after 25 years. It's strength and conditioning, working with athletes. And just recently, it was, again, all these things, conversations. And then I was in the WWE locker room multiple times. I was in the Giants weight room. All these opportunities were coming up. And I was like, you know what? In 2019, I want to get back to that. That's what I do best. That's what I love. That's kind of the long story behind that. And honestly, other things that I don't do anywhere as well as I do coaching somebody. Like I was just in the gym recently with an Olympic athlete, a pro athlete, and I can honestly say, dude, I'm doing a better job than anyone could do. And sure, I have friends that are as good as me, but you have to have that belief that you're the best, right? And I for 25 years, a minimum of 2 hours a day, some days 12 hours a day, I've studied strength and conditioning to the point where I'm coaching an exercise 1 rep for 10 minutes and adjusting people's spinal alignment and segmentation and this and that. Like I love that kind of stuff.
And I agree. And you should have, that type of self-confidence because you need it at the highest level. And if people benefit at the highest level, well, then, of course, your everyday person is going to benefit tremendously as well. So I totally agree. And I remember without a doubt, I read articles on T Nation, all Men's Health and all that. And I remember seeing your name and it was always with strength and conditioning. So for sure. And, the thing about strength and conditioning, though, is that it really blends over into everything, right? Because if you know strength and conditioning, well, you can help someone with body transformation. And if you know strength and conditioning, you can absolutely do prehabilitation or post-rehabilitation because you're correcting everything that needs to get better. How did you get into strength and conditioning? Did you first start as a personal trainer and then say, I love working with athletes? Or how did that work?
Yeah, I started training people when I was 19. I was originally interning in the college weight room, and then I got my first couple certifications, and I started training regular people. And as a kid, and up to that point, I still played sports. I was never the best athlete, and far from it, actually. But at that point, when I really got into training and saw the difference it made, I was like, man, I wish I started doing this when I was 12 or 13 because I could have been so much better and ran faster and jumped higher and all these things and been bigger because I was really skinny and weak. So 2 years into it, my dad had a friend and his son named Mike. I was fortunate enough that he said, hey, you think Jay would be interested in training Mike? He was 12 at the time. He was a really good wrestler. He was an all-state wrestler, broke his high school football rushing record. And I trained him all through 8th grade, high school, college, and even pro tryouts. And he was playing semi-pro ball after. And that was 22, 23 years ago now. And Mike and I are still really good friends, which is cool. But Mike got such great results that he referred me. His friend Chris, who I trained all through high school and college, he went on to become the captain of the Columbia football team. And within a few months, the 2 of them were referring me all of these kids, and I would have after school between 50 and 75 high school kids coming in, and I just loved it. And so that was my main thing. The first thing I did training athletically actually was 1985. The Bears won the Super Bowl, and Walter Payton was my favorite athlete of all time, and he used to do hill sprints. So before I even started lifting, I would do hill sprints because of Walter Payton, and because that was kind of like the introduction of strength and conditioning. And then from there, like I said, I just had all these high school guys. They went on to play college ball. They'd bring some of their teammates back. Those guys went on to become pros and get drafted. So now I have pro guys. So that was just how it evolved.
Oh, that's
And I like that. I mean, as much as I like today helping somebody, my friend reached out to me recently to get ready for a movie role. And as much as I like doing physique transformation, I do love just strength and conditioning and performance more so.
Without a doubt. And so when you were doing that initial training, was that at a gym? Was that out of your garage? What did that look like?
At first, I was going to people's houses or I would go to a public gym, and I saved every dime for those first couple of years so that I was able to rent space in a basement. And so it was literally an underground gym in a basement. And then I would continue for years. I just put every dime back into the business, buying new power racks, new weights, new hand benches. And we just continually upgraded to the point where I had it was only 1,000 square feet, but we had 4 collegiate elite FTS racks and 3 group ham raises and all kinds of stuff. It was a great training facility.
That's great. And you can tell that was a passion, still a passion to this day, because anybody that's talking about glute ham raises is obviously in it, right? So that's a great thing. What are your programs? I'm interested. So, let's look back 20 years, 22 years ago, 23 years ago. What did your programs look like then versus what do they look like today? And I'd love to see what you held on to and what you let go and then what you added.
Well, back then, the warm-up was just a couple of Hulk Hogan arm swings, and that was it. So that's definitely changed quite a bit. And, the first few years, I was just figuring it all out. I don't even really know what it was, trying everything. I would say for the first decade, I tried everything under the sun just so I had experience to know what works, what doesn't, why. And eventually, 2000, I think around 2000, I settled into really being largely influenced by Louis Simmons, the conjugate method, and Westside. So for most of my athletes, we would have a heavy upper body day, a heavy lower body day, rep and speed upper body day, and then a strongman kind of day, which is the second lower body day. And I did that was a system we used for a really long time. Nowadays, I don't have one particular set system. What's changed the most is, first of all, the warm-ups. So mobility, dynamic warm-ups, activation drills, things like that. The warm-ups are more extensive. Being 44 now, I'm more concerned with longevity and health. I know so much more than I used to. So we pay a lot of attention to that. Exercise execution is way different. It's not just hoisting weight and bouncing out of the bottom. I prefer slower eccentrics, isometric pauses, more joint-friendly exercises. So back then, everyone who came in, no matter what, was going to bench, squat, deadlift, overhead press, clean. Now, more guys than not are probably going to avoid those exercises, or I'm going to do them in a really safe way. Because that's the thing, is like, do you want to train for 12 weeks? And certainly sometimes, like if a high school football player comes in, he's going to get tested. He's got to do that stuff. Right. Even a young college guy, maybe some NFL guys, they're getting tested. They have to do that stuff. But now we realize that can you be fresh on a regular basis? And it depends on the sport, right? So like if you're playing baseball, you're playing basketball, and you're playing every day or every other day, you always have to be fresh. So I train in a way that minimizes soreness, minimizes fatigue, minimizes CNS burnout, all those kinds of things, excessive joint degradation, spinal compression, all that kind of stuff. So I want to make it safe first and foremost. I want to make sure you're moving well, you have mobility. But I do that with, like, for example, instead of spending an hour doing all kinds of banded distractions and stretches for hamstrings and whatnot, I will do as my main exercise a single leg RDL on, let's say, a 5-second eccentric, pause and hold the bottom position for 3 to 5 seconds. Now we can train strength, stability, mobility, flexibility all in one. So I'll do a lot of training like that, where it's more bang for your buck. And then, like I said, some people will be an upper lower split. Some people will be full body. It kind of depends, right? I mean, and now I'm in a fortunate position where I'm able to work with some high level people too. So like if The Rock comes to me, I'm not going to give him a full body workout. I know he does a 5-day split. I'm going to go in and tweak that 5-day split and say, instead of this machine exercise, let's do this as a single arm, one arm dumbbell press. And let's do some more contralateral loaded split squats and stuff like that. So it's more functional bodybuilding, But then if a female wrestler or a female athlete comes, most likely I'll have them do a full body workout. It just really depends.
Is that because you're looking to put more mass on The Rock, more weight, more muscle?
Because I know The Rock needs to walk around at 260. I know he's doing a 5-day split. So I'm not going to say, now we're only going to try 3 days to do full body. I just know he's going to hate it. Like, you have to know the psychology of the client too, right? So I don't want to make drastic changes. I just want to make slight improvements gradually. And again, back then, everyone would do the same thing and everyone would be coached a certain way. Whereas now I understand, like the other day, I'm working with an Olympic athlete and he wants every detail. So I'm loving it. But then I have a friend who's a high level athlete who doesn't want all those details. They just want to go through it. So you have to know as the coach kind of when to overcoach, when to not coach, when 85% is okay, or when this person wants to do 100%. So I've learned all that stuff and I continue to learn and evolve every day.
I agree. I think that's where really the maturity comes from, that perspective, meaning that I'm sure, now there's contradictions for everyone, but I'm sure that you're doing still some type of squat. Maybe it's not barbell back squats. Maybe it's a front squat instead. Maybe it's kettlebells, but there are squats, the deadlifts, the RDLs, the lunges, the step ups, the pushes and presses and chops are there, right? So the basic core components that are there, but maybe before everyone got the same program. Now it's bio-individuality because you understand not only does everyone need maybe a slightly different program, but also that not every day has to be a personal best. That, today, hey, you got 4 hours sleep last night because your kids were sick, they had 100-degree fever, or you just took it like The Rock takes an overnight flight, but he can do anything. So he's a different specimen. And then, the other part that I hear you talk about, and I believe in as well, is some lifts are what I call, and I think you agree, maybe you just have a different way of saying it, is they are high risk, low benefit, or high risk, high benefit. And the goal is not 12 weeks of lifting, as you alluded to, right? And that's why, I love CrossFit, but every day, personal best and teaching people how to do overhead cleans or snatches with a barbell when they don't even have shoulder mobility is dangerous. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's a great lift. You wrote something about Olympic lifting the other day on your Instagram account. We'll definitely link that up because you put some great posts up, and it always shows me I should be doing more. But people are like, not everyone needs to do a clean from the ground. They could do a hang clean. That's what you talked about. Like, that makes a whole lot more sense because of hip mobility and being able to control the weight. There's, all those different types of things. Do you agree with that? Do you still have the same core exercises, or have those changed over the years?
Yeah, well, you brought up so many points there. So one is the readiness to train. Yeah, as a coach, you have to get better at that. And for years, I did get better at that. Now we have kind of the technology where you can look at HRV and maybe you can use the Aura ring and stuff like that. But a good coach will do that anyway. Like, if you come in to train, I'm going to say all the questions you just asked. How did you sleep last night? How you feeling? And then we'll just see. And you could do, back in the day, before we had like Aura ring and HRV trackers, you could test someone's grip strength that day, and that would kind of give you an idea of their readiness to train. But basically, you just have a conversation, watch them warm up, and then you say, all right, today's not a day to hit a 3-rep max. Let's just go through and do some goblet squats instead of back squats or something like that. So that's a key to training and longevity. And when you're younger, you don't do that. I can't tell you how many weeks, how many years I would go in and be like, all right, I got 315 for 10 last week. I have to get 11 no matter what. Even though I slept 2 hours and my girlfriend broke up with me, it doesn't matter. So that you got to get smarter. Yeah, I believe in the basic movement patterns. Like, everyone should squat, push, pull, hinge, do loaded carries, some kind of rotation, some kind of anti-rotation stuff. But again, it depends. Not everyone's going to do barbell RDLs. There's so many different tools we can use, and you can get the same benefit for the most part. The thing is, like I said, reducing the risks. So if someone only has 12 weeks and they need to get ready for a roll or a wedding or whatever, I'm going to not spend a lot of time teaching them how to do a clean or a snatch or something complex, or even a barbell squat or even a barbell deadlift. We only have 12 weeks. Let's do easy exercises. So pretty much anyone can learn how to do a trap bar deadlift. People can learn how to do a goblet squat. People can learn how to do a hip thrust, dumbbell presses, push-ups, things like that. So easier learning curve, I think, is definitely the way to go. And then let's be honest, some people just do love doing those big lifts. So cool, but how can we minimize the risks? So we've got to really optimize technique. So that's what I always say to people. These days, people always want to know, like, what's the perfect ratio of sets, reps, intensity? How many days a week should I train each body part and this, that? You have to optimize your technique first. That's the main thing. And a lot of, like, our mutual friend, Ben Mikulski, talks about that. Pavel Tatsily has talked about that forever. You have to learn how to maximize tension and how to do the lifts perfectly in a way that doesn't cause any joint issues whatsoever. That's the most important thing. Then you get to train it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. We could address that after.
Yeah, and I had Ben on the show, and he talks about it's 42 lifts, right? It's 42 movements, I believe, that he has, and that's all that he does. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? I was like, that makes sense. Yeah. And really, I would even say it's like, okay, I've got my RDL, I've got my squat, I've got my step up, I have my lunge, so my legs are done.
Yep.
And then I have some type of anti-rotation or rotation, so let's just call it a chop. And then I have a overhead press, I have a horizontal press, so vertical and horizontal. I have a horizontal pull, and I have a vertical pull. So really, what am I looking at? 9, 10 lifts, right? And then you just get fancy from there.
Yeah, and then if you do a loaded carry, and
loaded carry is great. So talk about a loaded carry, because you mentioned that, and it's such an amazing exercise. We never think about doing it, but talk about that. What it does for the body.
So loaded carries are great because most people, and it's so interesting. And again, to talk about some of the athletes I've worked with recently. So the Chinese have a saying, "Death begins with the feet." So you don't train your feet, and then when your feet are weak, that leads to your ankles having issues, to your knees having issues, hips, low back. So you need to train the feet. So one of the best ways is with loaded carries, and you should always do loaded carries. And the majority of your lower body, the majority of your training in general, with no shoes on, because that'll just strengthen your feet. Like I said, when your feet get stronger, your ankles get stronger, everything's going to feel more stable. So loaded carries, you can do farmer's walks holding a dumbbell or whatever in each hand. Now, what's great is not only for ankle, feet and ankle strength, knee stability, hip stability, but there's a muscle on the side of your lower back, kind of a deep muscle called your QL, your quadratus lumborum. And a lot of people don't know about that muscle. That's weak and problematic for a lot of people. A lot of athletes have issues with that. One of the best things you can do to strengthen that is a single arm farmer's carry. So I always include those in programs. And you won't feel it right away, but after maybe 3 to 5 weeks of doing it, you're like, wow, my lower back doesn't hurt anymore. And I just feel so much stronger and more stable. So those are great. So I always include some kind of loaded carry. You can carry a sandbag or a heavy medicine ball, kind of a Zercher position. You could do racked kettlebells, so many different variations. But the key is just to do them at least once a week through 3 to 5 sets for 30 to 60 seconds.
I think that's great. For people, we'll try to link up a video today. So maybe you have a video on Instagram or something like that of a loaded carry. I would love to just show somebody a farmer's walk to start. And then, they can look how the shoulders are pulled back. They're engaging the core. I mean, one of the most amazing things is that these exercises we're talking about right now, none of them are ab crunches, but you will get a phenomenal abdominal area and core, like without a doubt. And that's because, these exercises get you in shape, and you can't help but work essentially every muscle in your body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're doing all these big movements that we just listed, you barely need to do any direct ab work.
And the funny thing is, too, one thing as you were going through what you're doing now versus maybe the 20-year-old, 22-year-old you, is that this is definitely a theme, is recovery and warm-up always play a bigger role. I remember going into the gym when I was in college, and I literally would walk over to the lat pull down and just try to rack it. Like I would use wrist wraps. I'd have a weight belt on, and I was like, I'm good to go. Like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And, for the most part, when you're 20 years old, like everything is fine. There's just a lot more give. And so you grew up in New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yes.
And now you're in Southern California. So over here right now, it was minus 22 degrees this morning as I'm doing that. Now think about that, especially you're not in college anymore. You've been sitting down most of the day. Warming up your body and getting that blood circulating is so important. So just tell us just a little bit about your warm-ups, and then I would love to hear about, because you mentioned it, the parasympathetic, or how you calm down the central nervous system after the workout.
Yeah, so I personally just like to wear layers and drink something hot before I train. I just like that way I start sweating from the get-go. And then I will do, most people foam roll incorrectly. So they'll just lay down and just rock back and forth. And it really does nothing. What with the smarter approach is, if something's kind of bothering you, for example, one thing I do with almost everybody is quads foam rolling. Now, the IT band is a waste of time. It's a reason why you shouldn't roll your IT band. But quads, so a lot of people, when they have low back pain, they immediately, for years, we would say, oh, your hamstrings and glutes, you got to address that. What I found almost universally is if I do a manual quad release with people, but you can kind of replicate it and get 85% out of it doing foam roller yourself. So you lay down on the foam roller, and you have to go completely limp, and just like your leg is jello. And you take 60 seconds to 2 minutes to go from your hip to your knee. And as you're going, just slowly down. As soon as you hit a hot spot, you spend about 10 seconds on that spot. You wiggle your leg, make sure there's no tension whatsoever. And then what I would say to you is, all right, Stephen, what I want you to do now is build up a quad flex, like you're a bodybuilder flexing your quad. Build that up over the course of 10 seconds. When we get to 10 seconds, I want you to take a deep breath and then exhale and just sink. Let your just whole quad sink down into that foam roller. And then we'll do that 3 to 4 times as you get down your knee. Then I get up and to demonstrate the power that I'll have you get up and help you up, walk that off. Without fail, you go, holy crap, I feel like I'm walking on air. My hips and lower back feel great. My legs feel amazing. So I always do that. That's one of my go-tos. And then I'll do a lot of half kneeling stuff. And half kneeling is something that I'm big on. And most people, 99% of people don't do half kneeling correct. So they'll just take one knee and they're just kneeling on a knee. But that's not it. If you do it correctly and you're dropping your hip and maximizing tension on each side, it's incredible. So I do a lot of half kneeling stuff.
What's your goal of the half kneeling? What are you hoping to get out of that in terms of flexibility or mobility?
Yes, so it's great for your hip flexor and your quad on the side of the knee that's down, and then you also just get some really good glute and core engagement. So I love that. And then I'll do some basic crawling. I'll do some Turkish get-ups. Turkish get-ups is a go-to exercise I think everybody should do. And there's so many different ankle mobility. Like I said, ankle and hip mobility all the time. So yeah, I haven't demonstrated them on video, but there's probably 4 go-to ankle mobility drills that I use. Because again, as I said before, ankle mobility is key for everybody. Most people don't address it. And so if you have knee, hip, low back problems, the first thing I say is let's work on ankle mobility. So we do that, and then we'll do some hip mobility drills where kind of just sit in like a 90-90 position and then do a leg switch, things like that. It's called a tie sit. Those are my go-tos. And then just moving on to the main exercises and just doing, slightly heavier working upsets.
So before I ask you about your recovery after the workouts, how you start the recovery process right away, one of the nice things that you're talking about ankle mobility, because everything does start from the ground up, is if you don't know what ankle mobility is, just try to draw a circle, a big circle, as big a circle as you can with that big toe in the air. So just extend one leg out straight. Anyone who's never done this before, and see if you can draw a circle 10 times in one direction, then 10 times in the other. It's surprising that a lot of people are like, of course I can do that. And it's disjointed. It actually looks like it's like stop and start. And it's the nervous system can literally not release that ankle from being so tight. And as you said, that's not a flexibility issue. That's a mobility issue in a mobility-based joint. So being able to do, and again, maybe if you have some videos, we'll link those up as well. And I can link up at least some ankle circles and some mobility work for the ankle is an amazing thing to do, because a lot of people can't squat properly and their knees flex forward because they have no ankle mobility, and then they have no hip mobility. So what else is left? Well, there's a knee in the middle, so that could bend forward. So they do that, and it's not really like your body can't get into it. So then they put plates underneath their heels. And if you do that, then that's a dead giveaway. You have no ankle mobility, and that's not a bad thing. You just need to work on it, right?
Yeah. So drawing the circle, like you said, is a great one. What I'll do is I'll have people stand to do that, but actually put your toe on the ground and you try to draw the circle with your heel, keeping that. It's really challenging. And then you get the additional load of kind of your leg on top of it. And we'll do that in both directions. That's a great one.
Nice. That's great. And then after the workout, I know it's kind of person dependent and it matters if they're at a gym or not, but will you just stop the workout? So again, like back in the day, when I was done with my workout, I was done with my workout. I would never give a second thought to stretching. It was a waste of time. I had to get right away to get in my creatine. And then after that, my shake and my carbs and all that good stuff. But now, of course, I'm like, well, my recovery is more important than my workout because I need to be able to do this again in another day or two. What does that look like on your end? And I know it varies per client, but in an ideal world, what would you like to see that's realistic?
Yeah, I like deep breathing, deep belly breathing right after, even just for a few minutes. Like you said, that kind of gets you more into that parasympathetic state. And then ideally, the perfect world, I would have everyone just walk right into a sauna and just chill out and do your deep breathing there. Kind of just like close your eyes, do a little bit of meditating, do a deep breathing session in there. But also I do some more mobility stuff, some more stretching afterwards. And not even necessarily because it's going to improve flexibility or anything, but it's just like you said, just get yourself into that other state and just kind of relax. I think that's the best thing you could do is just even 5 to 10 minutes is better than just walking out the gym. Walking out the gym, especially if you don't like day, walking out the gym and then sitting in your car for 5 to 10 minutes or worse, like 40 minutes is awful. You need to, even if you just walk around the block for 5 minutes, it's better just, than just sitting in the car being in a static position. So definitely do some stretches, some hip mobility stuff. Deep breathing is essential. You can put your legs up on the wall and do the deep breathing, which is great. Stuff like that. Anything but just walking out of the gym. That's a bad idea.
I agree. So if, the big takeaway there is if you allocated 40 minutes that day to your workout, save at least 5 minutes at the end for a little bit of stretching. Or that one was great too, which is really nice for that parasympathetic nervous system, is reverse the blood flow, get the legs up on the wall, feet up on the wall, try to push your hips as close as you can without hurting, your lower back if you have very tight hamstrings, and just sit there and breathe. I mean, it's like the end of a good hatha yoga class, and you're just relaxing and just calming that central nervous system. It will help tremendously with recovery.
Yeah. And I know nowadays everyone's addicted to their phones. So even one good thing, like if you've done a lot of like deadlift or hip hinge variations, just lay down in kind of like a cobra position on the floor and scroll through your phone that way. And that kind of resets your spine too. Your back will feel a lot better if you've done a deadlift or clean kind of workout. If you just lay down for 5 minutes in that kind of cobra position on the floor, your spine will feel way better the next day or so.
Yeah. One thing I know that I think there's about a third of the listeners of the show are in the health and fitness field, and I know the majority are not. So if this sounds like a lot, or if it sounds complicated, honestly, it's really not. We're actually talking about the true basics of the foundation of any program, so that when you look at a magazine or you look at a book, or you can say, like, are these exercises of people standing on a stability ball, like trying to touch their finger to the nose, or hands on a stability ball, feet on a Bosu at the same time? You can say, if so, well, I mean, really, what's the point of that exercise? The point of that exercise is oftentimes just to feed the ego or look cool or feed the personal trainer's ego. So what we're talking about is really approachable work that I'm going to link up Jay's work. I'll link up the previous book that I have, but really that you can see the benefit of a high level strength and conditioning coach like Jay, or a local personal trainer that knows their stuff, that's NSCA certified or NASM or ACSM. And maybe you don't train with them forever, but maybe you get a program once a month. And the benefit to that is you not having to become the expert, and the level of detail and customization for your body, I think, is just life-changing. I mean, I honestly hire a coach now for everything I do, because I don't have time anymore to say, like, oh, I'm just going to spend the next 6 months learning this. Well, sure, I'm going to do that, but I want the shortcut, right? Like, they know way more than me. It's been their life. If I had never trained before and you have 23 years experience,
25, come on, don't 20,
yeah, 25. How could I ever catch up? I can't, right? I can't. Maybe with my longevity-based programs, eventually I will, but like that might be some time. So that's a big thing too, is don't feel like you need to be the expert, but know what to look for then in a personal trainer. Are they customizing it for you? Are they helping you with recovery? Are they doing a proper warm-up? Are they activating the glutes? Have they ever talked about a foam roller? And these are all really, really great. So what I'd like to know.
I love, let me just, because you talked about, not making it too complicated and simplifying everything. So if what we're saying sounds complicated, it can be as simple as this. Go into the gym, and some of the warm-up exercises are hard to use. If you haven't trained in a long time, you could go on the Aerodyne bike for 5 minutes, and then your workout could be some kind of squat, so a goblet squat if you haven't squatted before, some type of hinge, so a single leg RDL or some kind of RDL like that, a press, a dumbbell press of any kind, a pull, a one-arm row, and then finish with some farmer's walks. Do 3 sets, and for the majority of people, I recommend about 5 to 6 reps until you get good, because every rep above that, there's a higher risk of your form breaking down and an injury. You and I could do higher reps, but for the most part, I like to see slow, controlled eccentric, 3 to 4 seconds, pause at the bottom, really learn how to maximize your technique on that. Just do 3 sets like that, 5 reps, do that 2-3 times a week, push, pull, squat, hinge, carry, and that's it. It's super simple. And then, you can complicate it more as you go, but it doesn't have to be fancier than that.
I think I recommend the same exact thing, is when you're first starting out, 5 exercise circuit for the most part, and you can get everything in. It, just like you said, start with 2 sets the first week. If you're over 60, do 1 set, because if you haven't trained before, you don't know how sore you're going to be. I mean, you might be totally wiped out, but here's the thing. If it was super easy, then great. Then just do 2 sets the next week. Yeah. And if you're like, oh, that was the right amount, I couldn't really walk down the stairs that well. Okay. So you'll do 2 sets again. And then if that eventually gets easy, which it will, because it's a hermetic stressor and your body will eventually get stronger, then you can move to the 3 sets. So yeah, I completely agree. The best thing is you get in there, you start with the fundamentals. Is this what your training looks like today, would you say? Or what else do you like to do? Because I know that you like to get outside of the gym as well. So tell me a little bit about what your program looks like today.
It's very similar to what I just said. Some weeks I'll do upper, lower, full if I'm going to train 4 days. And sometimes if I know I'm only going to train 3 days, it'll be 3 full body workouts. And then randomly, just because people are coming into town and whatnot, I might jump in and do just a chest day with Ben or something like that. So it's not ideal. It's not what I would recommend, but I enjoy it because I want to work with different people and whatnot. But usually for me, for the most part, it's like I said, those 3 or 4 days, and it's basically exactly what I just said: a push, pull, squat, hinge, carry, maybe a couple extra things here and there. And then, like you said, I think people need to get outside more. Like, fitness has become this thing where we think that fitness means going to a gym where there's all machines and you're just, well, there's a million people there and you're doing this whole thing. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like, if you just rock climb and swim and paddleboard and surf, if that's your fitness, I have absolutely no problem with that. I think everybody should do some strength training, but if you hate it and that's what's going to get you out and get moving, cool, more power to you. Like, get outside. I would even say, if you're going to do strength training, if you live in a place that you could be outside, way better than being inside. As I'm sure you've probably addressed a million times, the amount of time you spend inside is not natural and not healthy. So take some kettlebells, go outside, take some rings or a TRX and hang it from a tree and do push-ups and inverted rows out there. Way better, get natural air and that natural sunlight. So I like to hike, I like to surf, I like to play pickup sports. We have the sand dunes here, so I like to get over there once in a while and sprint up those. I love paddleboarding. We took that up, stand-up paddleboarding. We took that up last year. So all of that is fitness too, yoga, all that kind of stuff. That's just as important.
So is your workout week then, or your activity week, a little something every day, or is it just the 3 days a week of activity, or 3 to 4?
No, it's something every day.
So it would be like 3 to 4 formal workouts, whether it's in the gym or just working out outside. And then it might be like another day stand-up paddleboarding or hill sprints or those types of things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I rarely do nothing. I mean, maybe I'd say 1 week out of 3, I'll just do absolutely nothing on a Sunday. But I would like to even just go for a light hike or something that day. I just like it. I think it's beneficial. I think for most people, if you're going to make something a habit, it's a good idea to do something every day. That's why I don't want people to think that fitness is just going to the gym and killing yourself on some kind of crazy circuit or super hard workout. It's not. It's an everyday habit.
I mean, that's the thing, that in the beginning especially, and I know it's going to sound strange, but I did, this is not on an exercise day. I did it on a Motivation Mindset Monday day. I said, whatever your goal is, you have to do it every day. Like, it's every day until it sticks, because you don't have it in your life right now. You don't own it. So if you're looking to transform your body or something's happening, now you can't go hard every day, but it should be pretty much the same time every day. It should be built in your schedule and it becomes a part of your life. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of that. And obviously, you wouldn't do strength training every day, but you could certainly do body weight exercises every day, and you're not going to take it to failure. Or you might do resistance one day and then hop on an exercise bike, an Airdyne bike, or go for a hike the next. And then every other day would be cardio and resistance. And I think that's a nice way to do it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one takeaway for sure is that you can't go hard every day. Most people could probably do 3 to 4 hard sessions a week, probably. And depending on, even you have to remember that exercise is a stressor, just like, your dog dying or getting fired or negotiating a new contract or whatever it might be. Those things are all stressors. So even though exercise is beneficial, it can be really harmful too. Like, if you look at what happens inside the body after a workout, we would say, whoa, you should never do that. Your inflammatory markers are up. Everything is totally shot right now. But in small doses and at the right intensity, it's really healthy. But at high intensity all the time, it's really bad. So you have to balance that. Just like you said, so if I do a high intensity day to day, which might be, something explosive, which is going to tax my CNS, and something heavy. Tomorrow, I might just do 20 minutes on the Airdyne, and in between, I might do 1 or 2 minutes on there. In between, I'm doing some mobility flows. I'm keeping my heart rate at 180 minus my age for 30 minutes. Something like that. Next day, maybe I'll go hard again, following down paddleboarding. So yeah, it's a good idea. General rule: high intensity, low intensity, high intensity, low intensity.
That's great. And does yours change at all? I know that you have one season out there and it's the best season, but do you like literally change for the season or activities? Like, does that change? Because for me, it does, meaning that I've talked about before, we get 3 or 4 good months here in New England and they're amazing. Like, they're really great. So I'm outside all the time. I'm barefoot all the time. And people are like, well, what if you step on a rock? I'm like, then I step on a rock, but I'm going to go barefoot. Like, I'm just going to enjoy being on grass in the backyard and all those things. And I'll bring my battling ropes out. I'll bring a mace out there. I'll bring a kettlebell. It's a mishmash workout, but I'm outside and like my young girls are there and like we're just having a good time. So I do that. And then in the spring, I'm doing more like cross training. I'm in the pool. I'm doing biking, I'm doing some running, I'm doing resistance. And then in the fall, I'm like, all right, I'm lifting heavy and I'm going to put on like 10 pounds or so and just kind of like build up my body for the winter. That's my playful routine. Do you do anything like that, or do you just kind of go with like whatever you're into at the time?
I love listening to you. That sounds great. But like you said, we have one season in here. So, yeah, I kind of just do all of it all the time, kind of just whatever I'm into. And then I tend to historically get really into something. So if I get really into paddleboarding, I'll be paddleboarding all the time. But yeah.
For sure. And stand-up paddleboarding is amazing. So if anyone has the opportunity to do that, I did it for the first time about 5 years ago. And I woke up the next day and I said to my wife, I was like, why is my back like just swollen? I mean, it feels like I got a great workout. And I honestly couldn't think about it because it did not dawn on me that doing stand-up paddleboarding would give me that much like posterior chain work. And it was fantastic. So huge advocate of people doing that for sure.
Yeah, love it.
So I would like to lead us now and ask this is, I would like to know your opinion. I just did a podcast on this just a couple weeks back. Every year, ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, publishes their top 20 trends. And they've been doing this now for quite some time. And they're usually pretty good. They take kind of the pulse of the fitness industry, media, everything where it's going. And I did a show on that, and it's nothing earth-shattering, but it does always predict a little bit more like wearable technology and more people doing more high-intensity interval training, more customization, and now more of exercise being medicine, right? So we're starting to recommend that. For you, regardless of what they're saying, where do you see it heading this year or the next couple years? And what do you see rising and what do you see falling in the industry?
I think more and more people are going to get into the wearable technology and the tracking and all that. And then that's going to reach a point where it's just detrimental and it's insanity. And I know that I actually just found out yesterday, Cal Newport has a new book called, I think it's Digital Minimalism or something like that. And so there's going to start to be a backlash with that where people are just getting too crazy. Like you can't be exposed to any light. You're constantly wearing blue blockers and hiding. And like that's insane too. That whole biohacking community, I think, is borderline insane, where it's much healthier to be exposed to fake light and eat gluten and sugar with people you love and not be stressed out than it is to be wearing tinfoil hats and tracking everything in your phone and freaking out if you eat something and just have anxiety and stress all day. Like, I hope we can get back to a simpler time and just, like you talked about the blue zones a lot. The common factor is they have connection and community. That's what's more important. People are so obsessed with all this stuff. So I think it's great. Like, I use some of that stuff, but I could certainly go without it. I don't need it. I don't track anything. Now, they're sending me, some companies are sending me some stuff, so I know I'll get into it for a while and start using it. And then I know myself in 90 days, I'll start to say, oh, this drives me nuts. I'm not going to use it anymore, So people will continue to want to do more high-intensity stuff. They'll burn themselves out. They will get injured. And so I hope that people come around and understand that exercise is medicine, like you said, and there's minimal effective dose. And I do see a lot more smarter people preaching that nowadays. You obviously do a great job with that. Friends of ours do a great job with that. So I hope people understand that training and fitness and wellness is not what you see on a Nike commercial or on a Rocky training montage. It should enhance your life. All that kind of stuff just burns you out. So do something that's sustainable and that you can do forever and that you enjoy too. So like if you came to me or Billy or Susie comes to me, I can't tell them that lifting heavy is the great. If they don't like it, okay, we won't do it. If they want to do yoga, cool. You got to do something you love too. Now I feel like I'm veering off and not even answering the question, but yeah, I think more of that technology is going to become more popular, but I feel like people will eventually start to burn out, and there'll be other alternatives to CrossFit and things like this popping up, and people become more aware of what's good and what's not.
Yeah, I agree. And there's always a flip-flop, right? So like right now we're in the go hard, and we have been for a while now, because before it was CrossFit, it was boot camps. And in my opinion, I think boot camps are a little worse because there's not even a break, and it's 500 reps. Like, it's just, people don't know it because you're doing circuits, but like if 20 squats are good, 500 is better? Probably not, because again, your form's going to break down. But I think, they're becoming a little bit more sensible now. And CrossFit also, like, again, I give them a hard time, but I like CrossFit. I really do. And they're changing. Like, they're creating a foundations program, a lifting-based program. A lot of their top athletes are talking about, like, they're not always just doing the workout of the day. They're doing other things as well.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot of great CrossFit gyms, great CrossFit coaches.
yeah, there are. And that's why I never want to put it down. I mean, I put down the trying to have a personal best every day.
Yeah.
And I do preach progression. So I preach, a specific adaptation to opposed demands. I do preach that, but you have an unloading week. And then you're adding either a little bit more weight or a little bit more volume. And then after that, you're saying, okay, how much can I push myself? But you're not breaking down your form. You're saying if I have more, mainly because of neurological adaptation, I'm getting used to doing this movement, I might be able to do a little bit more, which is great as well.
What you just mentioned there, you touched on this earlier, it's one of the reasons I like full body workouts a lot. Because if you only train something once a week, you're just going to go super hard. Like it's just going to be your nature to say, well, I'm only pressing once a week. I have to step PRs and I have to go super hard. But if you know you have 3 pressing workouts and 3 squatting workouts, then you can use HRV and just kind of cybernetic periodization or whatever, however you want to phrase it, where you just go in that day and you're like, I don't feel that great today. Instead of doing a heavy bench press, I'm going to do a shoulder tap push-up or something because my shoulders tweak a little bit. I'm not going to try to set a PR because I know then on Wednesday I'll press again and then Friday I'll press again. So that's one of the benefits I really love. And also the warm-ups. If you do something 3 times a week, those major movement patterns that we touched on, you don't have to warm up as much because you squatted 3 days. So it becomes more natural to the brain. Like you said, you're practicing it. And I like to think of training as practice more so than just a super hard workout. Like go in, like you would never play a sport and pitch until your arm's about to fall off. You would do it each day till it was an appropriate amount. You wouldn't play golf, you wouldn't shoot hoops until you were just destroyed. You wouldn't play the piano until your fingers bleed. So think about it as practice, and that's one of the huge benefits of full body workouts.
Yeah, I wish people knew how fitness models and athletes really trained, meaning that I believe that with this wearable technology and the technology we have, you mentioned HRV a couple times, heart rate variability, unless there's a different HRV that I don't know about. What that's basically saying you was how stressed are you? That's all it is. We're looking at your heart rate variability. How stressed are you today or how recovered are you? And you can do that with body temperature in the morning. You can do it with resting heart rate in the morning. You can do it with blood glucose. And HRV is easily the least invasive one, except maybe put an oximeter on your finger. I think things like that are going to lead us to a better area because they're going to allow us to train hard because people love to train hard. I mean, as humans, we love to push our bodies, which is great.
Yep.
But that technology, HRV, the blood glucose, which eventually we're going to be able to hook that up to our phones and a lot of other things, we'll know, like, listen, I'm overdoing it. It's not the right amount for my body. And this is already being done by great coaches like Jay, and it's already being done by the most elite athletes. So things just take a while to trickle down eventually to general public, but you have the ability to do that right now. The unfortunate thing is that the good HRVs are very expensive. There's no good, inexpensive HRV that I've seen. I don't believe the watches right now do a phenomenal job. Maybe I could be wrong on that. I just haven't seen a great one, but the chest strap and a few of the other ones we were holding do look pretty good. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do want to say this, like all those technologies are great, but I do want to reiterate that most people, if you don't have them, if you can't afford them, if you don't want to use them, you still can use common sense. Like I have a pretty good track record of every time I go to the gym, I go, I don't feel like training today, and I have to drink 3 extra cups of coffee. I either get hurt or I get sick within 48 hours. Like I'll get a little sniffle, a little scratchy throat. And that just happened like 2 weeks ago. I should know better after 44 years. So I was like, man, I really don't want to go. My friend's here in town. So I'm drinking coffee and getting all amped up and listening to Metallica. Next day, I had a scratchy throat. I felt like garbage. So if you learn to listen to your body, all these technologies are great, but just listen to your body first and foremost.
I agree with that, without a doubt. What would you say then to the people who say, like, well, I never feel like going to the gym? What about that? Like, what would your rebuttal be? Would it be get in there, try to do a little bit, see how you feel, maybe even just do some mobility work? And then if you're starting to feel a little bit better, move a little bit more. What are your thoughts on that as well? Because I hear that a lot. Like people are just like, no, I'm too tired to go to the gym. I don't ever want to do it. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should go. Because there are people with very low levels of cortisol output and they don't have any anti-inflammatory and they really should not be training. Maybe they should be doing some hatha yoga, some breath work, a little bit of sauna. But with the average person, I want to transform my body. I want to lose 30 pounds. I know I need to exercise. I'm not into going to the gym. What's the way that we push them to get them to take that first step? Or if we do, maybe we don't.
I would say, all right, let's make it super easy to start. Here's what I want you to do: 2 sets of bodyweight squats, 2 sets of push-ups, and find something to do, like do a bodyweight row or even a band row or something. Do that. Even like you said, maybe start with 1 set. So the whole workout's going to take you 4 to 7 minutes. Everybody has 4 to 7 minutes. So you get home, you do that. You could do that every day. You could do it every other day. You can do it twice a week. Start with that. And then from there, we could slowly build it up. Okay, now build up until you get to a certain amount of reps. And then we could add some resistance with a backpack on your back or holding, whatever you have around the house. If you want to invest in some kettlebells, some bands, some stuff like that. If you make it super easy and give yourself no excuses, and I get it, like if you're super busy and you have kids and work late, it's a pain in the ass to drive to the gym. It might be a 10-minute drive, it might be a 30-minute drive. You get there, you change, you warm up. I mean, it can be a 2-hour thing. I get it. Oftentimes, I'll just grab a couple kettlebells and just train at home, and it's 15 to 20 minutes, and I get a good workout. So I think you've got to lower the barrier to entry, just make it super simple. And then if you find yourself obsessed with it, okay, then maybe 30, 60 days down the road, 3 months down the road, get a gym membership or just invest in more stuff. But don't make it this big monumental thing at first. And I will say, we're earlier in the year now, so people want to lose a bunch of weight and do kind of New Year's resolutions and all this kind of stuff. If you go really hard and do all the stuff I've said not to do, if you do that for 4 to 6 weeks, you will lose more weight, most likely in most situations, than take an easier, sustainable approach. But then you're burnt out, and that's never going to last forever. So instead of 12 weeks, think about 12 months and 12 years.
I totally agree. Yeah, don't overestimate what you can do in the short term, right? Like, don't say like, oh, I'm going to do all this, and then essentially, as they say, underestimate what you will do in the long term, which is really what matters. Because even if you lose the weight, it's more demoralizing to gain it back. So lose it at a slower rate. And we both know that exercise, I call exercise an adjunct to keeping the weight off. It should not be the catalyst to take the weight off. If you're in there for 2 hours a day on the treadmill, I mean, sure, you'll burn some calories, like no doubt about it, but is that sustainable? 2 hours every day? I mean, look at The Biggest Loser. That taught us that 6 hours a day of exercise is not sustainable, right? So like,
what was it? All of them gained the weight back plus an additional 30% or something?
I mean, most of it, but it was a flawed system. I mean, it was for TV, 1,600 calories a day for men. And these are not small individuals, right? 1,200 for women. It wasn't quality of calories. They tried, but it was more just total calories. And it was how much can I exercise and sweat it out. And we know, yes, you can do that in the short term. You can do amazing things with your body in the short term. We see that with a lot of fad diets right now. What we're looking to do, and I think what we can both agree upon, doing this for 20 years, is like, hey, listen, the people that are the most successful, they're not the tortoise, but they're not the hare. They're going to do something that's more bio-individualized, something in the middle. But not only that, you have to do something so that you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So the sooner you get moving, trying different things, then you're like, you know what? My body just doesn't do well, because some people do have actually longer torsos and they have shorter legs. Like for me, I do great at deadlifting. So I love deadlifting. Well, I'm good at it, but I have long arms and my legs are not long. So, so what it allows me to do is take my shoes off, do some really strong deadlifts. Should I be focused on other lifts? Absolutely. So like, then we can look at that and work on that. And that's where a good coach comes from as well. It's like, listen, you can't do buys and tries every day. We need to start working on some other things as well. So that's great. That's great.
Well, what you said there is important too, because I've worked with so many people where they come to me, they're actually surprised that I say the first thing we're going to do is reduce your overall training volume. If you work with a type A guy or a high level athlete, a lot of times they're just doing way too much and they want to get leaner. And I'm saying, well, your cortisol's through the roof, you're inflamed like there's no tomorrow, and you're not sleeping. Let's get you more sleep. And I guarantee you, if you get more sleep, you're going to get leaner. And they can't even comprehend how that's possible when you explain, why that is. And then you have them start to reduce the training volume. All of a sudden, they're like, wow, I feel better. I'm actually getting leaner doing less. I'm like, yeah, I told you, but it's hard for people to believe at first.
Without a doubt. And I work with a lot of guys right now in their 50s, and they come in for hormone and they come in for body transformation and, get in great shape. And you know what? For the most part, these guys coming in are already in great shape, but they're looking to take it to that next level. It's like that pit-up-based mindset, which is okay. I understand that. And so, what I'm saying is like, okay, you're doing 5 days a week training, like, and you have a trainer for all 5 of those days. Like you're okay. You're good there. What we're missing are these items like you just talked about. For you, believe it or not, you're overtraining. Most likely you're catabolizing. You're not allowing yourself to build back up. And your recovery is what needs to change. So same page there. And it gets more important, I believe, as you start to get into your 40s, 50s, and then, of course, beyond the recovery. one thing I wanted to add before I do move on to this is that, and you were mentioning this, home workouts. You can have a gym membership, you can have a personal trainer, but it's my belief that you should have a backup system. So I just want to share mine is that if I miss the gym for whatever day, I've got a crazy life, but I schedule in my workouts. Like it's a part of my day. And what I say is, and I don't use this as an excuse, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. I have a chin-up bar at my house that hooks onto my doorway. I have a kettlebell, and it's just a good weight for me. I'm not going to give the weights because people should use the right weight for them. And then I have my own body weight, and I also have some bands. So I know I can do my circuit, which is simple. It's chin-ups. I'm not even doing pull-ups. I'm doing chin-ups, which is easier on my shoulders, easier on my elbows, because this workout has to take me literally 5 minutes to 7 minutes because I get home. My 2 girls are there. It's not my time anymore. Like it's literally family time and they're hanging on me and all that. So I'm doing chin-ups. I'm doing body weight squats. I'm doing push-ups. I'm doing lunges, and I'm doing a Russian twist in a V pose. And that's my go-to. And might I add in some other dips, things like that? No, it does not matter. What matters is that I do 2 sets of those exercises and I just blast through them. And I said, I did it. I got something in. World's best workout? Absolutely not. Did I do something? Yes. And that makes me feel good,
Yeah, exactly.
So my thing for people is you have your own body weight. You can do something like that as well. And if you're someone that always gets bound up at the end of the day, do it in the morning. Like start out slow, do it in the morning, even if it's just a plank. Do a plank for 30 seconds, get your body used to moving a little bit, and I think there'll be huge, huge benefits. So I'd love to get into now a little bit more, and if you're open to talking about it, because it's a little different, and I know you do some strength and conditioning, but I'm just more interested. We've spoken about this in the past, but I don't know fully about it, is your immersion weekends. I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because you actually have people come out to you, which is what you and I are more into. It's not like, okay, like how long can I be on Instagram or Facebook today? It's like, well, that's not really the goal. It's like how many meaningful connections can I make in a day or a weekend? And so tell me about your immersion weekends, and love to hear more about those. I believe you call them Renegade weekends, but I might be confused on that.
So we've been doing those for about 4 years now. And I used to, when I had my training facility in Jersey, we would have just strength and conditioning workshops, and guys would come out and we would just do that all weekend. Now we still do a lot of that. So we'll still do a variety of workouts, mobility work, warm-ups, strength training, all kinds of stuff like that. And then I bring in other experts. So my friend Dr. Mark Chang might come in, and he's got a really unique system where he'll teach kind of self-defense stuff, but also incorporate mobility into it. And it's really cool. And I'll have my friend Tony Jeffries, who's an Olympic medal winning boxer, so the box with him. I'll have Dr. Belisa Branich, who's a breathing expert. She'll do stuff with that. They'll do stuff with her. And then we always start out on the beach first thing in the morning, really hard workout. And then in between all the physical stuff throughout the weekend, there's a lot of just like mental, emotional stuff, and just connecting and bonding and tribalism and all that kind of stuff. So where we ask the guys really hard, deep, meaningful questions that maybe they've never thought about before. Just maybe they just haven't taken the time to sit down for an hour and think about this stuff and be introspective. And a lot of really incredible sharing happens where at least every event, somebody says, I've never told anyone this in 35 years or 55 years, whatever it might be. And guys will have breakthroughs, going back to childhood. And my friend Mike and I who run them, we've kind of, there's just been an evolution where we try to get better each time. We see what works, what doesn't, we change it. And we've come up with a pretty cool formula now where we just have these amazing breakthroughs with people. And the bonding, the coolest thing for me is, like you were just saying, the personal connection. Guys leave these weekends with 1 to 4 new lifelong best friends. And they stay in touch forever, which is really cool. And so, that's basically, it's just like a mind, body, spirit kind of weekend. Sometimes we bring in guest speakers. And the guys are together all the time for like 3 days straight. So it's really powerful.
That sounds amazing. And I know a lot of those coaches and teachers as well, and they're, fantastic. So it sounds very well-rounded. And I think one of the ways, which I'm sure that you purposely created this, is that by doing some hard work, you get a little tired, you get a little bit exhausted. And I know they do that in SEAL training. They do it in any type of military, and it creates more camaraderie because you need to help each other out. You need to, when one person's down, you're cheering that person on, and then it allows exercise, community, hard work, manual labor. We lack all of that nowadays. We really do. And we are not tribal at all anymore. We simply don't do a barn raising. We don't get people together for community-based projects.
Yeah.
So the more we do that, the more that we can really connect. And I want to do more of that in the future for sure, is like really just get people together, connect people. And you also learn the material at such a deeper level than you could, reading about it or listening to it. Any of those things is that you see it in person, you have someone that is an expert in it start to correct you in it. But then when would you ever be then exposed to an Olympic level boxer, right? So it's like, you get a lot of fun things. You're probably not going to go on to enter Golden Gloves, but you will know a little bit more about that. And so I think that's fantastic. And especially the lifelong friend part, right? Because most of us have really surface level connections of just, okay, yeah, well, how do you know them? Well, I DM them on Instagram. Okay, like, great. Like, so you guys are really close. Well, like, yeah, he's one of my best friends. Like, have you ever met in person? And so I think creating more of that, I know it's hard. It's not easy, right? But the more we can do that, the better.
It's the most important thing. We touched on it earlier with the blue zones. And we would have evolved to live in groups of 30 to 40 people and never have been alone. It would never have happened. You'd hunt alone. You'd fight. You hunt together. You'd fight and defend together. You'd build shelter together. We would sleep low to the ground in groups. Like, you would never be alone. I mean, that's the worst torture you can give a prisoner is solitary confinement. And in the animal kingdom, if an animal is injured or whatever it's done, it's ostracized, it's alone. Like, we're tribal creatures and we're not meant to be alone. So many people, a lot of times, and people will come to events and be like, oh, I spent so much time alone, but I'm fine with that. And I'm saying, no, and I'll tell them in their face, like, no, you're wrong. And it's like, no, and I'm saying, no, I'm not giving you my opinion. This is scientific fact. You are wrong. You're not better off alone all the time. If you surround yourself with more people and get more involved in your community and build more real life relationships instead of just digital relationships, you will feel better. You'll be happier. You'll have less anxiety. Everything about your life will be better.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's when you say that I'm better off alone or I'm better when I'm alone, I mean, that goes to some serious barriers, right? And so those are things that need to be broken down. And I think you can do that with a good 3 days. 3 days is a lot of time. When you're with someone for 12 hours or more a day, you have the small talk's over in a couple hours. Then after that, it's like, okay, there's a lot more meaning that comes out. There's always so much you can talk about. Like, oh yeah, beautiful out here. Where do you live? How many kids do you have? And then after that, it's like, well, what do you really have going on? And those are the type of relationships. Then it becomes lifelong, right? Because you're not lifelong if it's just chit chat, if it's small.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's great. What about coaching workouts? Do you still provide online workouts for people?
Yeah, we have the Renegade Strength Club, renegadestrengthclub.com. And we're actually redoing that right now. We're upgrading it because 2019 is our 10-year anniversary. I started that in 2009. So, which is really cool. We're doing a bunch of stuff on the back end and getting that all ramped up. And
what's the main website, Jay, where people can find you?
J.fit, JAY.fit. Everything's there.
Perfect. The podcast is there as well?
Yep. Or renegaderadiopodcast.com.
Excellent. I'll link up both of those. Now, on your podcast, because it is an amazing show and you have great guests. I mean, you really curate a good group of guests. I'm sure that people contact you all the time, but you have on people that you want to chat with, that you want to talk with. And I think you can really tell that I enjoy your podcast. And is that once a week? They debut, is it every Friday? How does that work?
We do it once a week now, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And how many shows are you up to right now?
280.
280. So for people that first time being introduced to Jay, you've got 280 shows that you can go back and check out. So it's a good amount of interviews. How else can our listeners find out more about you? Any parting words, any wisdom that you can share with us?
Any parting wisdom? I would say just keep it simple. 80-20, that's the main thing across the board and everything in life. I think keep it simple, sustainable. And just those sites. I'm most active on Instagram, which is Jason Ferruggia, and that's about it.
Excellent. We'll link all those up. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stevencabral.com/courses.